Hi everyone, for the recording, we're just going to wait. I've started a few minutes early in case anyone's kicking around in the waiting room. But there have already been some amazing webinars. I'd rate each of the ones I attended. I was part of watching James Devonport's webinar on Cloudflare workers and George Collier's webinar on bubble security, both well worth a watch when they come out. But we'll just wait a few minutes to give people a chance to join into this Zoho webinar. Hi, welcome everyone. We're just getting people dropping in right now. We will wait a few minutes as there's always technical hitches with joining new platforms, joining calls, etc., coming in from other webinars that are just finishing. So hang tight. We're not going to start anything for a couple of minutes. Hi, everyone who's just joining. Glad to have you here. We're going to wait a couple of minutes to give people the chance to drop in. Just saying we're going to wait a few minutes before we actually launch into it. So if you need to grab yourself a drink, you've got a minute or two to go and do that. Just because there's always a little bit of delay. We're trying to get into new platforms like Zoho. This is then the second time I've used Zoho. So we'll just give it another. We'll get started at sort of 4 minutes past the hour. As you're joining, it'll be good to light up the chat. We're going to be having a discussion about marketing and startups, but it'd be great to just get an idea of, if you've got questions about marketing because you just read the title and the description of this webinar, throw them into the chat. That's going to be really helpful. It's always good fun just to throw into the chat what country you're from, whether you're pulling an all-nighter for Dev Day. Let's have a bit of engagement. Otherwise, it does feel a little bit weird hosting one of these things, just talking to yourself. Yeah, from Oz. Bubble's got quite a big following in Australia. I've done calls, often my late evening, your early morning with Australian Bubble app builders. And looking at the analytics that we get on our site, heavily US as you'd expect, but Australia, other parts of Europe, Bubble is of course growing in popularity. Give it 10 more seconds. If you want to throw any questions about marketing and startups into the chat, we've got that open on a separate window. We're going to keep a close eye on the chat, make sure we don't miss anything. Cool. Right, I think we'll make a start then. Good to have you all here. Too many windows. Right, here we are. If I build it, will they come? Lessons from a growth marketer. So we're going to start with a quick introduction. Hopefully you can see myself. I'm Matt. I'm Bubble, sort of habitual Bubble app builder. I discovered Bubble in 2017 and have since then been trying to rein in the urge to build every idea that comes into my head. And many of my early ideas fell flat because I had no marketing plan. A couple of years ago, I met Sean and we co-founded together with one other guy, Planet No Code, and we've basically been recording Bubble educational videos focused on no code, bite-sized issues in Bubble, helping people do that really niche or particular thing in their Bubble app. We've been doing that for the last couple of years. And Sean, as part of the vital member of our team, is the marketing guru, has actual lived experience across a whole range of domains to do with marketing. So Sean, why don't you give an introduction about yourself, please?
Yeah, sure. Thank you for inviting me to this this event, and really glad to be here. So yeah, I'll just do a quick intro about myself and my experience. So I've been in marketing for over 15 years now. So I started my career in one of the world's largest marketing agencies in the UK. And then a couple of years later, I decided to join the fascinating world of startups. So I started to move. I started to join startups and scale-ups across different industry and vertical and sectors and shapes and forms. Eventually ended up at my current role, as well as co-founded quite a few businesses. I think in total I've set up 5 businesses, either by myself or alongside other partners, and majority of them failed, but I gained a lot of experience and learned a lot of lessons throughout the journey. So from a marketing perspective, I've been helping companies across all different sizes and sort of level, from Jimmy the plumber down the road to digital magazine to clothing brand, but I think largely my experience has been around specifically helping SaaS companies at different stages to grow from either 0 to 1 or 1 to 10 or 10 plus. So I think that one of the largest companies that I worked for at the time when I joined them, they raised about 60 million USD for their funding, and now they are, I think, close to $1 billion like unicorn status. Currently, I'm working also primarily with a company in the creative AI space, helping them to kind of get from, I think when I first joined, they were on 1.5 million ARR, annual recurring revenue. So now we're kind of shooting for going beyond 10 million ARR. So we're kind of halfway there. So it's work in progress, but a lot of exciting things happening in the coming months or years. So that's a quick intro about myself. I've been in terms of marketing, I've done pretty much everything. I think at Planet No Code, our sort of core marketing channel is YouTube, as some of the attendees here probably came across our YouTube channel. If not, do take a look at planetnocode.com and search for Planet No Code on YouTube. But there's so many great marketing channels that can work really well for a lot of Bubble developers, solopreneurs who starting their first Bubble app and trying to solve a problem and build a business. So we can unpack a lot from this session.
Great, thanks Sean for that introduction. We would love to riff off you guys. We thought maybe initially the plan was, I think, for these meetings to be on Zoom, and then we kind of all be in a meeting and we could put our hands up, ask questions. We're going to have to use the chat for that. So do throw your questions into the chat as we go along. But as a way of launching the conversation, I want to go back to 2018. So this was shortly after I discovered Bubble, and this is a screenshot from a web page that is still live on Product Hunt. And it's both one of my It's many things. It's in some ways it's one of my greatest successes, one of my biggest letdowns. So I had an idea for a personal CRM that was dead simple. You basically created, you get an idea, screenshots a bit poor quality, but you create a grid of your friends, and then you say, send me an email every 2 weeks. And in that email, it would include what you had talked about previously with that friend. And you could reply to that email after you've had a catch up with them. And so you could gradually build up this trail of communication. Because I was finding that my peers and we were leading a really busy life, and you'd say, oh yeah, stay in contact. It was always so good to catch up. But suddenly you'd look and 2 months had passed by, and there was a WhatsApp message that you meant to reply to, and it's now 2 months old. So that was the idea behind it. And, I've got 262 upvotes on Product Hunt, which is not bad. It's kind of probably bottom 50%. So that's what I'm saying, not bad. But I'm going to launch into a conversation with Sean around this idea that I built and I acquired some users for, and then I abandoned because I felt like it was going nowhere. So we're going to use this just to root our conversation. But like I say, if you've got any questions, any observations, do throw them into the chat, and we'll happily take a tangent that's going to be on the spot relevant for you. So over to Sean. I build a Bobble app. I put it on Product Hunt, and I'm disappointed at the number of signups. What have I done wrong, and what should I have been considering? Because I had no plan, and that was the problem.
Yeah, it's a great question. I think we briefly discussed this quite a while back when you were sharing your kind of bubble development experience. And I think to answer your question, you haven't done anything wrong. You've done everything right. So not only that, you throw your app, throw your business out there across on the right channel. To be honest, Product Hunt is a good place to start with probing to the wider sort of audience. This is a solution that I'm offering. Would anybody be interested in using it, and to see if the tool will solve your problem? I think the most common question that I've heard so far from a lot of Bubble new solopreneurs who's developing Bubble apps was, right, I've done the app, I've created the app. What should I do next? How do I get my first customers, and how do I put this app out there? I think there's quite a common misconception. Usually my answer to that question is always, you've probably done it the wrong way around, because the first thing to do before you actually building the app is to talk to those people who you build the app for. So I think, I've made the same mistake multiple times myself. So as a entrepreneur, as a solopreneur, so you obviously come up with an idea in your own head, and then you thought of this problem, and you realize, right, this is something that I can use this particular tool, such as Bubble, to build into a solution. But generally speaking, you shouldn't really start from there. The first thing to do, you shouldn't really start from building the app right from that point on. What you should really do is, let's talk to the people that I'm building this app for. So let's say, using an example that I've heard recently from one of the entrepreneurs that we spoke with, he was building a financial, I think it was a financial evaluation app. I can't remember specifically the details. So he was in the financial sector, and he noticed that there is quite a bit of a problem with one of the very specific step with financial evaluation in a particular industry. So he thought about it. He realized, all right, I could build this app with Bubble easily. So he actually went out and built the app. I think he booked a few sessions with Matt. Eventually he built the app, and then he came to us asking, right, what should I do next? How do I put myself out there? How do I put this product in front of the customers? My answer to him was actually, how many conversations have you had with your customers who you build this app for? So the first thing to do is actually speak with your target customers, or in the industry, we generally call it ICP, or ideal customer profile. So for example, this financial evaluation app he built was for this particular job role to solve this problem with. So the first thing he could have done to reduce and minimize the risk of failure was actually to speak with his colleagues or the people that he built this app for, to understand not just if this this is the right way to solve the problem, but more importantly, about the perception of how they look at the problem. So quite often there are a lot of problems out there that waiting to be solved, and there's obviously with new technology emerge, there's always new problems come up, and then there's new problem to be waiting to be solved. So the first thing to do is actually talk to these people that you're serving with your product, and understand what their perception is. Is this a high frequency problem that worth solving? Is this a problem that's really painful, that people are scratching their head and willing to put their money down immediately to pay for a solution like that? If it's a problem that not worth solving, then it's probably a very risky product to build. Even though that with Bubble these days you could build app with very minimal cost with Bubble, but still there are a lot of time. Bubble has quite a bit of a learning curve, right? And it takes time to actually build it. So there's quite a bit of a risk in terms of energy and resource and time that you put into it. So hence, my advice is always, before you build the app, actually talk to the people that you're serving, and you're trying to sell the app to, and understand the problem. If you build the right product, it's always easier to promote and market later on. So I've personally made, as I mentioned, I made the same mistakes before. I built product or developed business that no one really wanted, and then as an experienced marketer, I struggle to actually promote it. I actually struggle to market it. So, and then I realized, right, it's a lot of problem that you see is almost like it's almost very on the surface level. The root cause is always the product. So because good product always sell by itself, you don't have to push too much to sell. I always use this analogy of hoverboard. You never really need to sell or market a hoverboard. You know that people want things like that, right? But again, like with a lot of problems that you probably want to do a lot more investigation and talking to the customer to realize, to understand, to draw the conclusion that if this is something that people will pay for and later on would be willing to buy. Going back, this is a long-winded way to answer your question. So I think you did the right thing, that you didn't spend a penny. It didn't cost you anything to promote your app. That you literally just put on Product Hunt and see what people perceive about your app. Although you could have done a bit more communication with the people that, I guess, for a CRM like what you built early on, it was something that's kind of D2C, direct to consumer. So you could talk to your friends, your family, people in your network that you think that this app they could bring benefit to their life or work, and then understand what they think about this thing that you were about to build. But then when you first launch it on the market, I think Product Hunt is a perfect place. And there are many other ways you can launch your product free of charge and without spending a penny on running advertising, and still getting some coverage and reach to get some first sort of engagement to see if this is something that the market needs.
Thanks, Sean. Yeah, so I've been learning from Sean. We've known each other for a couple of years now. And would it be right in summarizing that the easiest app to market is where you've basically got contacts of 10 people who are going to bite your hand off for what you've built. So a lot of the people we see who are building Bubble apps, and the reason they're taking the no-code route is because they've got experience in a particular and often not tech-focused industry, say kind of copywriting. And so they've got experience in that, and they're building an app and bringing in AI because they think that they can build a really useful tool for people like them. But the key bit is that they have a network of, there was a very niche, crafty focused app that we were helping the app creator with at the start of this year. And it's such a niche group of people, except for the fact that this app builder already was deeply embedded in the network of people who wanted to use it, and then found it much easier to grow it from there. Would you agree, Sean?
Yeah, 100%. I think we talked about a lot about technology being the sort of power or enables non-technical founders these days. For example, Bubble is a perfect sort of example as the technology that enables non-technical founders to start and build a business out of it, right? So what comes with that was so technology becomes really accessible. So anybody could literally, theoretically, and practically build a business with nothing, with very low cost, with minimum amount of time. So what a lot of people talk about defensibility or moat. So if you ask an investor to invest something, the first question they generally ask is, so what's your defensibility? What's your moat? What would prevent another person from down the road to build the same thing as what you're building? The answer is always kind of centered around, so how much understanding, how much knowledge or experience do you have in this particular vertical or space? So as an example, I've built quite a few businesses has nothing or very little to do with marketing. So the result has always been, because I didn't really know about the vertical industry very well, I didn't really have the right competitive advantage comparing to the other players in the same vertical, so that I was already disadvantaged. In contrast, quite a lot of solopreneurs or founders that we spoke with together at Plan No Code, a lot of them actually started the idea specifically for their own industry, and they know the industry so well. One example would be one of the mastery students who was a high school teacher in New York area, who has this super intense pain with I think it was teaching material preparation. And because he knows about the industry, he knows about his profession so well, he knows about the problem, and more importantly, he has a really wide and deep network connection with all the other teachers who would need the solution that he was building. Therefore, before he would even need to consider number one, what's the right features to build, and number two, more importantly, how could he promote the product to his target audience? He already have loads of people he could talk to understand the problem, to understand the perception of their problems, and more importantly, to basically sell the product to them before he even built it. So I think that's essentially a strong element of moat or defensibility for anyone to start a product idea within their own turf. They understand the problem really well. They have already got, like you said, a deep network that they can talk to do customer research, and later on to directly sell the product to them. So it's the best way to actually create and validate their idea, is to start from something that, as a solopreneur, an industry that you're really familiar with.
Thank you. And I think there's, at least for me, the first time I really processed that line of thinking, it was a bit of a hard truth to accept, because I could order some flowers online from a local florist and think, oh, this website's terrible, I could build something so much better, I could do it in an afternoon. But I know nothing about floristry. I don't know any florists. I could maybe arrogantly assume that I could build some better software and really make the user experience perfect. But I'm creating such an uphill slope. And as someone who subscribed myself at the start as a habitual side project starter, for me, I've learned that there is a line really quite close by that I shouldn't cross. I shouldn't invest time, effort, and money into something unless I have that really close to home personal experience and personal contact with the problem and similar people who are experiencing the same problem before I start to build the solution.
Yeah, exactly. Just before we carry on, I wanted to mention that obviously we all, as entrepreneurs, we all see a lot of stories, a lot of content online talking about an outlier, like an entrepreneur starting from, I don't know, like using Elon Musk as an example. He's starting SpaceX. He didn't work for NASA. He wasn't really a scientist in that space, but the amount of knowledge that he gathered from Tesla, in terms of electric engineer, he's an engineer, right? Again, not everyone's Elon. And we read a lot of successful story online, and those are outliers. I'm not saying that you're not supposed to, you shouldn't start a business or a product in an industry or vertical that you're completely unfamiliar with. I'm not saying that. All I'm saying is, as a first-time founder, it's easier, it's less, there's definitely less risk if you start a business in an area or vertical that you're really familiar with, because that's your natural defensibility or natural advantage comparing to all the other entrepreneurs trying to get into the same vertical at the same time. So you would have a strong edge and competitive advantage if you build a solution in that space.
Thanks, Sean. When we were prepping this webinar a week or so ago, one of the topics that I think it's important we cover is ads, because a common sentiment we hear is, with a tone of regret, someone saying, I built my app, I launched it, and I've wasted hundreds of pounds on Facebook ads, and I'm disappointed in the result. Sean, you have a slightly different take on when's the right time to run ads and what's the right motivation and outcome for a small ad budget. Would you mind unpacking that, please?
Yeah, 100%. I think, funnily enough, I've got a really good example that someone I met yesterday. We can talk about that shortly after. So with advertising, as someone who's run advertising since day one, when I got into my career, I started primarily focusing on paid search, so Google Ads. Back then, it was called Google AdWords, which is obviously you bid on. For those of you who are familiar with Google Ads, unfamiliar with Google Ads, you basically compete with other advertisers to compete and auction and bid on certain keywords when someone's searching for a particular keyword on Google, so that you're trying to appear on top. Because there is such a strong search intent for a particular solution, the likelihood of someone converting or purchasing your product or service is really high. Anyway, long story short, so for someone who's running advertising, digital advertising throughout my entire career, I see a lot of founders have this misconception that because advertising works for a lot of companies and businesses, so a lot of founders, particularly early stage or first-time founders, have that misconception or misunderstanding that, oh yeah, as soon as I have an app ready or I have a business ready to launch, the first thing to do is launch with ads. In my opinion, that's absolutely a no-go. So ads are really good with two things. One is to test market, to gauge market interest, to test market interest, to see if there is enough engagement or if there is enough interest in the market. And the key is not to have expectation of getting sales directly from these ads, from ads, not even like free trial or sign up. It's really just to see ads is really good. Like that applies to all different kind of advertising channels. That includes digital advertising channel. That includes Google Ads, paid search, paid social, so Facebook or Instagram, or Meta ads these days, which was called LinkedIn ads. All these advertising channels are great for getting your name out there to test how people engage, how people are cold, like completely haven't heard of your solution, haven't heard of your company or your product. How do they engage with your offering? That's number one. Number two is when you get to a place when you get to a place where you already see a very strong sign of product market fit, which means that a lot of people already purchasing your product or service, that's a really good time to launch ads and scale, basically to scale your business. So in my opinion, ads are really good for testing market sentiment and scale a business. It's really not good if you haven't really made any sales or had any real validation from your customers. Generally speaking, ads is a really risky channel. I wouldn't say it wouldn't work. Sometimes it does. But most likely it wouldn't work because the risk of failure, the risk of wasting the entire ad budget value assigned for this project is very, very high.
Yeah, thanks, Sean. Yes, for me, I take away that this ads are like a catalyst. You actually have to have confidence in both your product and even something that's down to your landing page to convert. Otherwise, the ad money could just be being burnt in front of you. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I think in one of the companies I previously worked for, the CEO So I joined the company. The company actually got acquired later on. When I joined the company, my mission was to actually reduce the ad spend by 100%. So we were spending quite a lot of money on a monthly basis. I think the yearly annual digital advertising budget was about 3 million for the company. And my job was to reduce that amount massively, meanwhile maintaining or without reducing the sort of growth trajectory or growth rate massively. And the CEO, funnily enough, he was calling advertising or ads a sort of performance enhancing drug. So it's something that it will give you a kick, give you a boost of your performance, of your growth, but you can't really rely on it because it's almost like you can't live off coffee or I don't know, caffeine on a daily basis, right? So it's the same sort of concept. Funny enough, yesterday I spoke with a founder who had a really good success over ads. So I asked him exactly how he did it. So he was in the space. So he actually created his own niche category. So he does subscription boxes for toys and action figures and pop cultures. So it's a really interesting space. I know very little about this, like Star Wars action figures, etc. So he actually started the business. He didn't know anything about ads and he didn't do any ads. So all he did, as I mentioned earlier, the step as a solopreneur was he created the product offering, and it's quite cheap to create that, right? There was no like weeks or months of development. It's obviously in a different business sort of category, but he created the thing. The first thing he did was not running ads. He went on to Facebook groups. He went on to Reddit. He went on to different kind of social platform where there are discussion about the sort of the product that they discuss about. And then he basically just wasn't really selling, but he was basically asking the members of those groups if they're interested in something like this. As you can imagine, he actually made quite a few sales through that process of trying to validate that product. And by the time he got to a couple of hundred customers, he realized, all right, now maybe it's time to run some ads. Now he has more than 15,000 customers, recurring customers that subscribe to their to his sort of toy box, and he used quite a lot of advertising to acquire new customers. So on the I think on a year-on-year basis, I think his growth rate was about 300%, and 60 to 70% of the new customers came from Meta ads or Facebook ads, as people in in the old days call it. So you could build really sophisticated targeting options using a lookalike audience, basically using the customers that you already have, and Facebook have all that lookalike data to map out and identify all the potential new customers that you can run ads and target your ads to. And then ads become a really profitable channel for him. He acquired 60 or 70% of new customers through ads, and the rest actually came from referral or word of mouth. So you can see that, yeah, just to answer your question, ads is everyone should have a love-hate relationship with ads, because you need to get to a place where you really you're in a good place, good shape to use ads to make the most of it, but you don't want to get in too early, because you'll end up wasting quite a lot of money with it.
Cool. I appreciate, folks, that we initially scheduled this for half an hour, but it's really hard to work out exactly how long you need. I think we'll wrap up in a few minutes' time. I'd love to hear, Sean, a lot of first-time founders, solopreneurs, people who enter the no-code space, they've got zero budget, very limited time, they've got a day job. What are the things that you would do for free with maximum efficacy in order to get your app out there?
I will say that the first thing to do is, before you build the app, as I mentioned, talk to the people that you're building the app for and understand their get the perception of what the problem, how do they look at the problem, how do they treat the problem, is it worth a problem for you to solve? Once you identify that, build something, as we call it, MVP, like as minimal as you could. Just make it minimally viable, minimally functional, and then talk to these people, get at least 10, ideally 20 of the potential customers that you using the app to serve, and then get them to use it and iterate, and you just keep making improvement with this app. Get to a point where you can see that its benefit is adding value to their life or work or whatever, serving whatever purpose that you build this app to. And then you need to ask the money question. You need to ask them to pay for it. Doesn't matter how much. It's $1 or pound, $10, depending on how you value, what kind of value proposition that you're providing. But asking minimal amount of money is the minimal way, the most viable way to validate if your product would be able to generate revenue for you. Because if people who you are familiar with not willing to pay, you can guarantee that if you go out there with, through other channels, you'll probably not be able to generate much revenue from this app. So the first thing is through network, family, friends, connections, ask them for their feedback, and more importantly, get to a place, build your product that is good enough, minimally good enough, and ask for the money. Once you have
I believe I think you shared this podcast with me, but the kind of actionable takeaway I took is validate your idea by seeing, can you get 10 people who are passionate about the problem and who would use your app? Can you get them to commit to joining a WhatsApp group? And if you can't get 10 people, then that's a really strong signal that you're not on the money.
Yeah, exactly. I think the signal is what you're looking for, right? Is what you're hunting for. And money, someone who's willing to pay for it, ideally it's not your relative, it's not your mom or your dad, your brother or sister who's obviously supporting you. There's a book called the Mom Test. You can read about it. It go into really details about this problem dynamic. Ideally you get someone who you acquaintance, someone that has this problem, that really need a solution that you're providing, and get them to pay for it. If you have 5 to 10 customers who's willing to pay for it, and that is a good, that provides you enough signal for you to maybe consider looking into investing something into advertising, but not yet. Something like you did with the CRM app that you built, or I forgot the app name that you built, but basically there are so many platforms, social media platforms, that it's really really good place for you to launch your app with completely free of charge. So as I mentioned already, like as you mentioned, Product Hunt is getting too crowded these days. So you're not going to be able to get the same level of attention or traction as you were able to get a couple of years ago. Still, it's a good way to put yourself out there to see what other people respond to it. And really good ones are Facebook groups. I've heard of so many solopreneurs start their journey with Facebook groups, and they reached really good success level. So Facebook groups and Reddits, what you do is you search for people complain about the problem that you're trying to solve with your app. You can actually make a list of keywords, right? Let's say using the example that I mentioned earlier with financial evaluation or financial assessment app this entrepreneur was building. What you do is you make a list of keywords of complaints or problems or solutions that basically create a mini keyword universe of the problem or the solution with your app that you're trying to address. And then you basically go out there, go on Facebook groups, go on Reddit, go on Quora. Quora is a great place to see what people ask, what kind of questions that people ask. Go on LinkedIn. There's so many groups and forums that ask these kind of questions. And then you identify all these problems on there. And these people you don't really know, right? It's not something that's, it's not people that in your close-knit circle. And they would have no sort of, no obligation to, be nice to you. Find out, list out these keywords and search them on these social media platforms, on these forums, and put yourself out there saying, hey, this is a app that I built to solve this problem. Would you be interested in would you be considering testing it or using it? And then later on, if you see people start using it, and obviously there's so many ways, so many analytical tools that you can see how users engage with your tool. As soon as you see there is there are signs of power usage, so that means some users are some repeat user will come back and continue to use your app to solve their problems. That means you're onto something, right? And then you can later on ask them to pay a minimal amount of money to validate your idea. And that's it, really, as simple as that.
Cool. Thanks, Sean. We've gone over time. Thanks to everyone who's stayed with us to the end. If I can offer one closing thought, which is that we'd love for you guys to connect with us. Best place is just to find us on YouTube and go from there. Because we've been discussing as a team. There's me, I'm the no-code nerd, and there's Sean, who's marketing, and we've got our other co-founder, Vabhav, who is product focused. And if you were here at the start, you would have heard Sean veering into product territory as being the starting point for any app that you build. And we've been this team for 2 years, and we've known that teaching no-code app development is only part of the journey a solo founder, particularly a non-technical solo founder, goes on. So connect with us on YouTube, because we've got plans for content that cover both marketing and product to take you through the whole journey, including how to build it with Bubble, because we think that all of those things brought together, you can't head in the direction of success without them. So thanks, Sean, for everything you shared. Enjoy the rest of Dev Day, everyone. It's getting late in the day here in the UK, but I know that there are webinars going on for many, many hours to come. So thank you for joining us, and enjoy the rest of the day.
You guys, speak soon.